All right, let's get into it. We're talking about one of the most provocative and, let's be honest, controversial books out there, Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction. And just so we're clear, this is not your typical romance guide, not even close. It's really a deep dive into the psychology of power, influence, and what makes people tick.
Green kicks the whole thing off with this quote from Nietzsche, which is a bold way to start, right? Right off the bat, he's telling us to park our usual ideas of right and wrong at the door. He wants us to look at seduction as this primal force of human nature, something that plays by its own set of rules.
So, what's the big idea here? What's Greene's core argument? Well, it all boils down to this. Seduction isn't just a sideshow. In the modern world, it has become the ultimate form of power. Think about it. Thousands of years ago, power was simple. It was about who had the biggest stick, right? Brute force. But then, figures like Cleopatra came along. They couldn't win a fist fight with a Roman general, so they invented a whole new kind of weapon, one that was subtle, psychological. Instead of forcing people to do what you want, you make them want to do it for you. You tap into their fantasies, you create pleasure, and you get them to drop their defenses. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Greene doesn't just talk about this as some vague, mystical art. No, he breaks it down and gives you a literal playbook with two very distinct parts. So, here's the formula. Part 1 is all about the seductive character. This is about who you are, or more accurately, the persona you choose to become. Part 2 is the seductive process. This is the tactical, step-by-step game plan of what you do. So it's this 1-2 punch. First you build the captivating identity, then you execute the strategy. And for part 1, Greene gives us these 9 core archetypes. Each one has its own unique flavor of attraction. You've got the rake, the charmer, the star. But for this explainer, we're going to zoom in on what the book calls one of the most ancient and potent of them all. So let's meet our case study, the Siren. This archetype is all about embodying a powerful, larger-than-life fantasy. The whole point of the Siren is to offer an escape. In a world that demands we be logical and responsible, the Siren is the exact opposite. She represents pure pleasure, a little bit of danger. She is a fantasy brought to life. And Greene's prime example of this? It's a classic. Okay, picture this. We're in Egypt, 48 BC. A very young Queen Cleopatra has just been kicked off her throne by her own brother. She's in a desperate spot. And who should roll into town at that very moment? None other than Julius Caesar, the most powerful man on the planet. Cleopatra knows she can't beat him with an army. She needs a different kind of weapon entirely. So she comes up with this unbelievably bold plan. She has herself smuggled into Caesar's palace. And the delivery method is just genius. A guard shows up with a gift for Caesar, a big rolled-up carpet. And when that carpet is unfurled, bam, she literally appears at his feet. Now this is the Siren's power in a nutshell. It wasn't just her looks that got to Caesar, it was the sheer theatrics of it, the audacity. In that one moment, she stopped being just a person and became a living fantasy. Now, let's fast forward about 2,000 years. We get another legendary Siren, Marilyn Monroe. Her acting coach once told her this, and it just perfectly captures that magnetic, almost unconscious appeal she had. But here's the kicker. That appeal wasn't just natural. So much of it was a careful construction. Her famous walk, totally invented. It was such a work of art that Groucho Marx described it as a mix of a femme fatale, a vamp, and Little Bo Peep. She was this perfect cocktail of innocence and raw sexuality, and it was completely intoxicating. So what's the secret sauce? What makes the Siren so incredibly effective? Well, according to Greene, it all comes down to her arsenal of theatrical tools. First, there's the voice. It's never rushed or loud, it's calm, it's unhurried, kind of musical. Second, the body, and just the overall look. It's about creating this dazzling visual spectacle, this heightened, almost goddess-like image. And third, her movement. It's graceful, languid, a little ambiguous. It suggests pleasure without ever being obvious. You put all those pieces together, and you get the Siren's true power. See, she's not trying to win an argument or appeal to your logic. She is an escape hatch from the boring, rational world. She's the promise of adventure, of risk, of pure, unfiltered pleasure. And Greene's point is that for almost anyone, that lure is nearly impossible to resist. And really, this whole case study of the Siren, it brings us right back to the book's central message. Seduction isn't really about your looks. It's about what you make other people feel. At the end of the day, the art of seduction is really hammering this point home. This is all a game of psychology. It's not about being the best-looking person in the room. It's about being able to figure out what people secretly fantasize about, what they feel is missing from their lives, and then creating the powerful illusion that you are the one who can give it to them. You're literally directing their dreams. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating, maybe even unsettling question. Green argues that these dynamics aren't just for the bedroom. They're in politics, they're in advertising, they're in our daily lives. Which makes you wonder, if this game is being played all around us, all the time, are most of us just players who don't even know the rules?